This episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by the Farwide app, outdoor intelligence in the palm of your hand. Okay, this week I'm breaking one of my personal rules, and I'm going to California. No, I'm not going down for the beaches, and I'm definitely not going surfing. I'm headed to California to meet up with my good friend and client, Mark Carter. We both have Blacktail deer tags, and he has a coveted Tule Elk tag. The crew and I loaded up in the truck and headed south, through Oregon, into California, and down Highway 101 until we reached the small town of Willits, gateway to the Redwoods, and as we would find out, gateway to world-class hunting. Pacific blacktail deer and Tule elk have overlapping ranges in this area of California. And blacktail are found from coastal British Columbia all the way down to central California. And while I could have hunted blacktail in my home state, I doubt that there's anywhere with hunting that's even close to the quality of hunting in Mendocino County. Upon arrival at the lodge, we met ranch owner Ed Mitchell and Mark Carter, who, as it turns out, got in earlier in the day and had already taken a Boone and Crockett-sized blacktail buck. Mark is getting close to finishing his Super Slam of North America, and he needed both the blacktail and the Tule elk in his quest to take all 29 big game species. So with his deer tag filled, we headed out the next morning to focus on hunting for an elk. Besides Ed, we would be hunting with guide Dylan Baca, and because we had 2 camera operators and Mark, we decided to use a Jeep and a side-by-side to navigate the ranch and get into the various hunting areas. Oh yeah. So we headed off into the pre-dawn light, and it wasn't long before we saw our first Tule elk. This was a small 5x5 with some cows. Too small to shoot on the first day of a hunt, and on this ranch, it's too small to shoot anytime. This property has a reputation for producing really big bulls, and we had a goal of filling Mark's elk tag with a big 6x6. At the next setup, we crept over the top of a hill and looked down into yet another drainage that had a spring and water hole in it. In fact, this one even had a wallow. And right off the bat, we spotted another small bull. But we also started to see other elk. And before long, we had 3 different bulls going right in the draw below us and within easy rifle range.
Oh, he's with cows. The cows are crossing, he's at the back. They're about to come in. They're going through that gate and go up on that hill.
We're getting set up above spots where the elk are known to be. Dylan and I are doing calling sequences, hoping to pull these bulls out right at the front of the rut. Hasn't started yet. We're getting bulls to talk a little bit today. But this what we're hoping for is that there's a bull up in that timber somewhere who makes some calling, entice them to even just stick their head out for a minute and see what they are. Get a shot opportunity. Might come in silent, might come in screaming, never know. Might not come in at all. It seemed like everywhere we drove on the ranch, we saw more elk. They were at the pond and in the meadows. And while we saw several blacktail bucks, I wanted to focus on Mark's elk tag. There would be plenty of time to deer hunt when the elk hunt was over. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Pendleton Ammunition, loading bullets, one round at a time. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Bergara Rifles, a passion for precision, every barrel, every rifle. Dylan and Ed decided we should do a setup at the top of a draw above a water hole. And it wasn't long before we saw the first cows. And then we heard the bull bugling back at us. When he hit the tree line, I was hopeful that it was a big bull. He had a big bugle and an even bigger attitude. But he was just another solid 5x5. And because he liked to put on a show for the cameras, we named him Hollywood.
Vocal, one of those things that you just experience when you're elk hunting. If you've ever been elk hunting, you just know that just puts chills down your own whole body. So the guide actually said we should call him Hollywood.
When he came out and was like knocking them cows back in, I was like, he's on. You know, we just need a 7x7 or 8x8.
Just needs to be a 300-inch 6x6 and doing business.
He is in business, I can tell you that.
It's early, but they're starting to get going.
Perfect overcast, I don't know, 60 degrees. From what I hear, the elk are on the move. Things are just getting started. High hopes for the day. We got a couple of blacktail bucks going across the field here. Every game's on the move. It's time to go hunt. Let's get out of here. The next morning was overcast and cool, but warmer than the day before. And it wasn't long before we spotted another 5x5 bull pushing his cows to cover early. And then we spotted a lone 5x5. It's good to see a lot of young bulls in the herd. While we're content to pass on them, it shows the quality of hunting will continue as these younger bulls get older and bigger. As the morning hunt was about to end, we spotted a group of hogs feeding, and then we spotted two boars that were off feeding all by themselves on a hillside. Now, Mark and I both have pig tags, so we decided to make a stalk. Let's sneak up that bottom and cut it down a little bit. Then we'll just guess. It's important to note that in California, all hunting ammo must be lead-free. This was taken into account when we set up the rifles for this hunt. On this stalk, Mark is using the Bergara Premier Series Highlander in 6.5 Creedmoor. It's topped with the all-new Burris Eliminator 4 laser scope and loaded with Pendleton ammunition using lead-free 147 grain hunting bullets. The rifle shoots half MOA accuracy and is deadly accurate out to 750 yards with enough terminal energy for long-range deer hunting. And it's more than enough gun to handle a Northern California wild pig. This segment of Checking Zero was sponsored by the Adventure Armory, rifle, scope, and ammo packages for hunters. Mark and I followed Dylan across the pasture, and using the cover in the creek bottom, we closed the distance to 200 yards. Mark got set up in the sticks, and as we like to say, he ranged them and eliminated them. This pig was the perfect animal to get the ball rolling on this hunt. Not only did we get to put about 100 pounds of pork in the freezer, but it allowed us to field test our new ammo and take the first ever animal with the new Eliminator 4 laser scope. Back at the ranch, we skinned the pig and made sure that he was in the cooler, ready to go to the processor before we went and ate lunch. It was a bit early for the elk rut, but on a ranch like this, we all felt like it could happen at any time. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Burris Optics. Find what matters. This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures has been sponsored by Marathon Seat Covers. We've got you covered. I'll tell you what, a lot of elk, a lot of deer, hogs. This place is a wildlife, sanctuary, it seems like. So we're gonna load back up, go out for the evening hunt. It's pretty hazy with the smoke from the fires that are just to the south of us. But, I mean, based on the amount of game we saw this morning, anything's possible this evening. As we went out for the evening hunt, we all noticed that the smoke was getting worse. The fires to the south and east of the ranch were growing and getting closer. And from experience, I know that smoke affects not only animal behavior, but it acts like fog and it affects our visibility. And based on the forecast, I could see that temperatures are rising, which meant that elk activity would be dropping. With a sense of urgency, Dylan and I upped our game. We started hitting more and more of the small pockets where the elk like to hang out. We made several calling sequences, cow calling and bugling. Tule elk are vocal and fun to hunt because they come to the call. Unbelievable.
All right.
We went and hunted all of the best spots. We covered them all. By mid-morning, it was 90 degrees and the elk were bedded for the day. Watching the news didn't make us feel any better about the hunt. Not only were temperatures about to reach 100 degrees in the coming days, but the forest fires that were producing so much smoke were getting closer. We were going to need to make something happen, and fast. We're going to do a setup here. We're getting Mark all set up in the gun. Dylan's going to do some cow calling. I'll handle the bugling. We're going to tag team this. See if we can pull a bull out of the timber down here at the bottom into this meadow in front of us. We've done it a few times now, different locations, but not here. One of the other landowners and guides has been seeing a bunch of cows in this long pasture over here. And they're coming up in here and bedding during the day, so hopefully we'll get it done. I'll back up a little. There's a spring up here. The trees, every time we drive up to it, there's elk cats. This time we stopped. The wind is blowing down. The sun's back here, so it's a pretty ideal setup. We just gotta hope that those elk are still up there. That's where they've killed some big bulls in the past. Keep my fingers crossed that there's still one up here. We went back and set up above the waterhole again. And sure enough, we called in old Hollywood. But this time, just a day later, he didn't have any cows. And he was missing one side of his rack.
Later, Hollywood shows up again, but this time he only has one horn. So he got his butt kicked.
While he was fun to play with, we decided that we needed to find the bull that kicked his butt and took his cows.
See that coming off? It broke on a weak spot.
This segment of Steve's Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by the Far Wide app. Outdoor intelligence in the palm of your hand.
This segment is sponsored by Adventure Armory. Rifle, scope, and ammunition packages shipped, ready to shoot. If you'd like to book this week's adventure for yourself, give our office a call. We will gladly take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing adventure of a lifetime. With forest fires closing in on our location and the smoke getting thicker, we knew that hunting conditions were less than ideal. So the next morning, Dylan and I took Mark to the Blackberry Spring. We slipped in with the wind in our faces, and sure enough, we could see a bull wallowing in the mud. The bugling got his attention, and then we could see him. He was another 5x5.
This morning, we had a bull rolling in the dark timber over there. Hit us back 3 times, chuckles. He's bedding down. Heard another bull bugling over here on this ridge. Got a look at him just briefly. We know he's a fairly decent sized bull, or has potential to be. He's got cows. Both of them have cows. One thing we have in common is right here in the middle, there's a spring. And this spring is where they're all getting their water. And we're up here. We have the wind in our favor. The sun's going down our back, and bulls on 2 ridges right and left. It's looking better tonight than at any other time prior to this in this hunt.
You know, we could have tagged out. I mean, we had bulls every day talking to us and doing that. It just wasn't. We knew we could do better if we came back in a few weeks. So we spent 5 days, had a great time chasing bulls, and just decided that we were going to hold off.
We worked that ridge all day, calling in bulls from across the canyon, and until the last minutes of daylight, we didn't quit. That night, with a massive wildfire bearing down on the ranch and the nearby town of Willits, it was decided that Mark would head home with the plan to return in a few weeks after the fire danger had passed and the mid-September rut, hopefully in full swing. And since my crew and I didn't have a flight to catch, Dylan and I got up early and went out for a quick morning hunt. That deer tag was burning a hole in my pocket. We cruised and glassed up several bucks, slipped into a few honey holes, and while I could have easily filled my tag, I decided that I would roll the dice on finding a better buck when I came back to resume Mark's elk hunt. And on the way back in, and on the hillside above the lodge, we spotted a lone boar feeding. He was in the perfect spot for a shot. I used a rifle that you'll hear more about next week, the 300 PRC, topped with the Burris Eliminator 4. had a quartering too.
Quartered away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was quartering away, so I went in. You see I exited up in that side. Dylan and I had a great morning, and I was able to put a bunch of pork into my own freezer before heading back north on 101. While we were gone, the fires raged. Willits was evacuated, and the ranch was threatened by a catastrophic fire, the likes of which the state of California had never seen before. All of us at Steve's Outdoor Adventures would like to salute the wildlands firefighters battling the historic blazes across the western United States. Our thoughts have always been with you, and you have our eternal gratitude. Remember, if you'd like to book this hunt or any other hunting or fishing adventure, give our office a call. We're always available to take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing adventure of a lifetime. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's show. But please remember to join us again next week as we return to California and experience the finest hunting that NorCal has to offer here on Steve's Outdoor Adventures.